talking about the trigonometric functions, and we talked about sine, cosine, tangent. We distinguished between each one of them. I could see that you guys understood the difference. When do we use sine? When do we use cosine? When do we use tangent? And when do we use the inverse of them? So cotangent, cosine, and cosine, right? Um, Now this week we are doing the second objective for our unit, which is to calculate for angles of depression and angles of elevation. And this week is that what we are covering for this week, right? Depression and elevation. Our essential questions, and remember, we are already in the second week of this unit. You have 2 more weeks and to be gathering your answers for these essential questions, because in the last week, on the last Friday, you need to answer them. How do we use angles to model and solve real life problems? Is geometry more like map making or using a map? Or is geometry more like inventing and playing games like chess? And today's lesson, we want to differentiate and distinguish between angles of elevation and angles of depression. You would want to illustrate word problems. So we're not only going to be reading a problem, you have to draw what the problem is saying. And you have to show me in that drawing, is my problem talking about an angle of elevation or is it talking about an angle of depression? And the last one, to be able to solve these problems. So I give you a word problem, you read it. Okay, is it angle of elevation? Is it angle of depression? I need to know which one. I draw what the question is saying and then I solve it. So this is what we want to accomplish this week. And this is what our lesson is about today. So now, what are these angles? These angles are defined in relation to an observer who may be looking up or looking down at an object. So, if I am the observer or if you are the observer, there is something that we call a line of sight. Your line of sight is what you are looking at directly to something. Right now, you are looking directly at your phone, directly at your laptop, directly on your tablet. That is your line of sight. If your mom or your dad comes in, you have to look up. When you move your sight from your device to your parent, you are looking up, you are creating an angle of elevation. If you are looking at your device and then, okay, I need to write something down because Miss Mai said this is important, so I look down at my notebook, I am creating an angle of depression because now I am looking down. All right? This is basically the relationship. An angle of elevation is when an object is above the level of an observer. We have an angle of elevation. So as I said, I am looking straight at something, then I look up. From me looking straight at something moving up, I am creating an angle of elevation. And an angle of elevation looks something like this. If I am standing here, there is something that I can look at directly across. But if I look at the top of a tree, then I am creating an angle of elevation. And the angle of elevation is right here. The angle of elevation is where the observer is. Never can an angle of elevation be right here at the top of the tree, because who is at the top of the tree? Nobody's at the top of the tree. It can't be there. All right? So an angle of elevation has to start from me, from the person that the question is talking about. If I am in a field and I am flying a kite, when I look up at my kite, I am creating an angle of elevation. The angle of elevation is from where I am. All right? An angle of depression. If an angle of elevation is when I look up, an angle of depression is when I look down. So if I am standing and I look down at something, I am creating an angle of depression. And an angle of depression, for example, in the diagram, if I am at the top of a tower and I look down on something, I am creating an angle of depression. And the angle of depression is where I am, the point where the observer is, the point where the question says this person is seeing. That is where your angle is. Your angle cannot be anywhere else. All right? Very important for you to remember. The relationship between the both of them. If this is the observer, he has a line of sight. That is what we call the horizontal. The horizontal is my line of sight. When I am walking, I am looking straight at something. I automatically look. As soon as I open my eyes, my sight is straight, right? You don't have one eye looking at that side and the other eye looking at the other side, or one eye looking up and your other eye looking down. Both of them are looking at the same thing. You have your horizontal, your line of sight. If I look up, I see a plane. I created an angle of elevation. If I look down, I see a dog. I created an angle of depression. Everybody understands the difference?
Yes, miss.
First activity. You are gonna look at the pictures, look at the pictures, and look at the pictures, and each picture that I'm gonna show, and I want you guys to tell me depression or elevation, right? So this is what we're gonna be doing. I have 28 persons in the call right now, so I expect to see 28 answers. So I'm gonna show the picture. You are gonna type the answer in the chat, and I'm gonna count to 3. You're gonna type it and not send it. So look at the picture, type it in the chat, do not send. I am gonna count to 3 and everybody's gonna send their answer at the same time. All right, that is what we're gonna be doing. Everybody understands the instructions. Very easy instructions.
What was that?
What was that ever? I didn't hear what you said.
I don't hear very well what you're going to do, miss.
Okay, I am going to show a picture. You are going to look at the picture and you are going to tell me if it's elevation or depression.
Okay.
You're going to type it in the chat and you are not going to send it until I count to 3. Everybody's going to send their answer. All right? So, I'm going to show the first picture right now. Look at it. Think about it. Name it. Type it. 1, 2, 3. Send your answers. Everybody should be seeing answers popping. Everybody's answer. Okay. I put this one to be number 1 on purpose because I knew that this was going to happen. The answer is elevation. Where is the angle? Is it at the boat or is it at the tower?
On the boat, miss.
On the boat. The person is standing on the boat and the person is looking up. So if I am looking up, what am I creating?
Elevation.
I am creating an angle of elevation, guys. Are you ready for the other one? Good. And we're doing the same thing. When I count to 3, everybody sends their answers. Look at the picture. Look at where the angle is. Is it elevation or is it depression? Think about it. Type your answers. I'm gonna count. 1, 2, 3. Send your answers. Okay. Where is the angle, or what is the angle? Who can tell me what the angle is in this question?
The 45.
The 45. Very good. Is the 45 an angle of elevation or depression? Is it going up or is it going down? It's going up. Very good. So I have an angle of elevation. Elevation, guys. It is going up. The line is going up. So I have an angle of elevation. Let's try another one. Look at it. Write your answer. Type your answer. One, 2, 3. Send your answers. Very good. Very good. Elevation. Very good. Okay, excellent work. Have another one. Look at it very carefully, very carefully. Type your answer. One, 2, 3. Send your answers. Very good, guys. Excellent work. You guys are understanding. Okay. Very good, very good, very good. Now, I have a second activity. Now, what we are going to be doing is that I'm going to be showing you guys a diagram that has multiple angles. Alright, so I'm gonna show you guys one first. And this is it. It has many angles, right? The broken lines are the horizontal lines. So I have 3 broken lines. You have to have good eyesight. Take a look at the diagram. This is my first horizontal line. And I have a 4 right here. And I have another dark line, this dark line right here. The broken lines are the lines of sight, your original line. The dark lines The full lines are the angle lines. Angle of elevation, angle of depression. Alright? If I were to ask you, look at number 1. If this is my original site, and I have number 1 here, my original site, and then I look down, what angle is number 1? What kind of... It's a depression. Very good. I look at angle number 2. And look at angle number 2. This is my original line of sight. And then I looked up to create angle number 2. Is angle number 2 an angle of elevation, or is it an angle of depression? Elevation. Very good. So we first had an angle of depression. Now we have an angle of elevation. Now if I have this broken line and I look down so that I can create angle number 3, what kind of angle is number 3?
Depression.
Depression. Very good, depression. Now I have this broken line and I have to look up so that I create angle number 4. What kind of angle is that?
Elevation.
Elevation. Very good. So I have an angle of depression, an angle of elevation, an angle of depression, and an angle of elevation. I have 4 different angles in the same diagram. Alright? So now what you guys are going to do is that for each picture, I am going to say elevation or depression. If you look at this picture and I say elevation, you have to give me the numbers that are showing an angle of elevation. If we go to the other picture and I say depression, you have to type the numbers that are showing an angle of depression. And we're going to do the same thing. You're going to type your answers and you're going to wait until I say send your answers. Is the instructions clear to everybody, or do I need to repeat the instructions?
Clear.
Clear? Good. Okay. So we're going to use the same picture. We already talked about the angles, but I want you guys to send me which angles are depression. Type it there and wait. Which angles are depression? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Send your answers. Some of you were not paying attention. Your answer should have been number 1 and number 3, because the angles are looking down, right? You have to see the angles that are looking down. So the angles are in the corners, right? So again, I'm gonna repeat again. If I look at number 1, I'm looking at these 2 lines, right? This one and this one make up number 1. So this angle is number 1. From my broken line, I look down, I get a 1, and this is an angle of depression. Alright? Number 2, I have this broken line, and then now I look up, I get an angle of elevation. I have this broken line and I look down and I get this angle. I have an angle of depression. Alright? So, let's see if we use line of sight. So you have to be careful, right? You always use the broken line, and then from the broken line, it has to go to a full line. So if I'm on the broken line and I move to a full line, did I move down or did I move up? Right? That is what you have to be looking at in these pictures. Are you ready for the second one? Okay.
Yes.
Look at the picture. I'm going to give you a few minutes. I want the angles of elevation. Which ones are showing elevation? So from the broken line, I go up. Which ones are showing that? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Send your answers. Okay. I had asked for angles of elevation, right? Elevations. Okay. Angles of elevation. So the angles, I am on the broken line, and then when I move to a full line, then I make an angle of elevation, and those ones are number 7 and number 9. All right, so very good, guys. Number 7 and number 9, and most of you have those answers. Let's see. Okay, anybody has any questions so far?
No, miss.
Okay, so I do have, let me check one thing. I do have one, like a little mini quiz, little activity for us to do right now. So what I want you guys to do is that I will be putting the link in the chat. 10:35, 11:30. Okay, so we have enough time to do this. I'm going to be putting this link in the chat, and then you guys will click on the link. It's a Kahoot quiz game, quiz/game, and you guys are gonna click on the link, and then you're gonna go there, right? So let me stop recording.